X accomplished. That's the Super Falcons of Nigeria winning their 10th Women's Africa Cup of Nations title after defeating the hosts Morocco just a few days ago. Then we have the African School Games that are currently underway. For the first time ever, ANOCA has decided to host the African School Games, and that's a very exciting competition. And lastly on this show, we have Zambia's strongest man awarded a vehicle by the Republican President Hakainde Hichilema. If you're joining me for the first time, my name is Felix Munyika, and I'm your host for the weekly sports roundup right here on this YouTube channel and across Facebook and other platforms. Thank you for joining me for the third edition of this weekly sports roundup, and going straight into business. On today's episode, we have three things that we're talking about, and I wouldn't be doing justice if I don't congratulate firstly the Super Falcons of Nigeria and the entire country of Nigeria for winning their 10th Women's Africa Cup of Nations title after defeating Morocco by 3 goals to 2. What a comeback! I never saw that happening. Nigeria was already down by 2 goals to nil by halftime, but after that break, like, everything overturned and they won the games by 3 goals to 2. So just looking at that competition and going through the numbers, Nigeria played 6 games. On their way to the final, they scored 14 goals and they only conceded 3 goals in the last 2 games. Those 2 games, one was the semi-final and of course the final, where they conceded 2 goals. And on their way to that final, obviously they defeated my team, that's the Copper Queens of Zambia, by 5 goals to nil, which was a surprise to everyone because everyone expected the Copper Queens to do better, but Nigeria had a superior team and they deserved the results they got. Also, a big shout out goes out to the Nigerian goalkeeper, Nadozi. She got the Golden Glove in this competition. She's the African Goalkeeper of the Year, current African Goalkeeper of the Year, who went 360 minutes of play without conceding a goal. I think that should be a record on its own. I don't know. We need to, consult with CAF on that. And then going through the other awards that were given, of course, the top 3 teams were Nigeria, Morocco, and Ghana. Congrats to them. Then we had the Fair Play Award, which was awarded to South Africa. South Africa was amongst the top 4 teams. We had the best goalkeeper of the tournament, so obviously Chiamaka Nadozi. Congrats on that one. The Golden Boot went to Chebak, Morocco, with 5 goals. Congrats, and she had a good game. She scored in a crucial game, so she deserves that. And the player of the tournament went to Nigeria's captain, Rashidat Ajibade. I think she had a good game, but on this play of the tournament, I was also looking at the prospect of Esther Okoronko, but Ajibade had also a good game, so the people that decided that she was the player of the tournament, but also Okoronko came in when it mattered the most. So I think it would be fair to give a shout out to her and also the entire team Nigeria. They had a good run, but this just doesn't end here because, like I mentioned earlier, the Super Queens, who are the favorites for this competition, were also expected to at least perform better compared to how the performance was. And we will have the Africa Cup next year in 2026. Obviously, Morocco will be hosting again, and it will be a round match. Now, the twist to this Africa Cup next year is that it will be a qualifier for the Women's World Cup in Brazil in 2027. So the top 4 teams, the teams that will reach the semi-finals, will automatically earn a place to go to Brazil for the Women's World Cup. 2 of the 8 quarterfinalists, in addition to the 4 that will qualify for the semi-finals, will also have a chance to qualify for the World Cup through the Intercontinental Playoffs. They will enter into a competition prior to the World Cup that they will compete against other countries from other continents for places in the World Cup. So 2 teams will have a chance through the Intercontinental Playoffs, and if both teams go through, then we'll have 6 African countries at the World Cup in Brazil in 2026. Moving on, Team Zambia was amongst about 45 to 50 countries that are competing in the first edition of the ANOCA African School Games in Algeria. So the games have attracted mostly school pupils or students, primary school and some extent high school, and Zambia is among the countries. I think this competition is, it's like I'm excited for this competition because it provides a platform for young, raw and upcoming talent to have to have an experience of, you know, multi-sport events at an international level, which also creates motivation and an opportunity for them to have that experience. Because when you look at most of the time when athletes from African countries, they take long to reach or compete in international competitions, that will give them the international exposure that they need, so that when they they reach competitions such as the Olympic Games, the Commonwealth Games, they would have already have had that experience, and it will be easy for them to see a large crowd, you know, compete in big stadiums and whatnot. So yeah, Zambia has given an opportunity to about 8 athletes through the National Olympic Committee of Zambia, who are managing this process on behalf of Zambia. And I mean, yeah, they'll be competing in judo and of course tennis, and wish them all the best in Algeria. And we're looking forward to an exciting competition for them, and also just having an experience of competing at such a high level. And after that, obviously, they'll be looking at the possibilities of competing at the African Youth Games that will be coming in Angola in a few months' time. I think around December. Obviously, from there they'll look at the opportunity also to qualify and compete at the Youth Olympic Games that are coming up in Dakar in 2026. And from there, obviously, who knows, we can see them on the stage at during the earlier 2028 Olympic Games. And it starts from small competitions like this that builds them up to bigger stages like the Olympic Games stages. And yeah, so be sure to follow the updates from the African School Games across NSZ platforms. That's the National Olympic Committee of Zambia. They'll be sharing updates on Team Zambia, and for the rest of other teams, be sure to follow ANOCA on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. If I'm not mistaken, they'll be able to share updates on what's happening right there in Algeria. A couple of days ago, Zambia's Republican President, President Hakainde Hichilema, handed over a vehicle to Paul Mwanza, a strongman athlete. So for those of you that are familiar with strength sports, where you have all these buff guys competing, you know, lifting weights and whatnot. So we had our own Paul Mwanza, who was competing, I think, in the US sometime back last year, if I'm not mistaken. He was the Zambian Sportsman of the Year for 2024, and a few days ago, the Republican President, President Hakainde Hichilema, at State House, awarded him a vehicle worth about 250,000 kwacha. That's around 10,000 US dollars, which is commendable. Yeah, this is very commendable because ever since the president got into power, we've seen initiatives that have not only, you know, appreciated, they've recognized the hard work of sportsmen and women, and they've been awarded handsomely, if I can use that word, because we've seen like houses being given, cars. I think this is the second time that a car is being given to an athlete, and yeah, I think it's commendable. But in as much as there are certain issues that are still happening in the sports fraternity in the country that need immediate, you know, need to be addressed as soon as possible, initiatives like this are really commendable, and kudos to whoever was involved, especially the company that donated the car, and obviously for it to be given to Paul Mwanza and whatnot. It's very commendable. But whilst I was preparing for this brought me, like, it brought a lot of memories in my head because of what happened sometime early this year. And I already expressed my dissatisfaction for what happened on Facebook. For people that follow me on my Facebook page, I touched this issue a little bit, but I didn't go into detail, and I would like to take this opportunity to go into detail because specifically addressing the awarding of the Sportsman of the Year award. So, I mean, for a moment, let me be Leonardo da Vinci and let me paint you my own vision of the Mona Lisa. So, make this scenario in your heads and just follow me on this one. 2024 was, of course, an Olympic year. Every country was looking forward to the 2024 Paris Olympic Games. Everyone. I think for me, who was in Paris, it was one of the most watched Olympic Games editions. Like people from across the world were in Paris. Everyone was excited for that competition, whether on the field of play and outside the field of play. It was really exciting and whatnot. And there's a coach who was named the coach of the year in Zambian sports by the organizers of the Zambia Annual Sports Award, a male coach, Coach Douglas Kalembo. That coach won the coach of the year, like I mentioned. Yeah, is the coach who coaches an athlete who won an Olympic medal for the first time in 28 years. Zambia brought home an Olympic medal, a bronze medal in form of 400 meters. The same athlete was part of the 4x400 meters relay team that qualified the Olympic final for the first time ever in history. For the first time ever. The last time Zambia had a relay team at the Olympic Games was, I think, sometimes in the 1980s, somewhere around the Seoul 1988 Olympic Games in South Korea. The same athlete won a Diamond League competition in Rome. He won a Diamond League competition in Rome. I mean, you guys can prove me wrong or I stand to be corrected, but in my time being on this earth, it's the first time I've watched a Zambian athlete win a Diamond League. 400 meters, he won a Diamond League. Additionally, on his way to winning the bronze medal, the athlete broke two national records. Not once, twice. Broke and set two national records. But that athlete, though these are just some of the things that the personal accolades he has 2024, and from 2022 to 2024 the athlete has been on song. And what I mean is that he's been performing well, like he's put the country on the map. Everyone now in the athletics world knows him, but whatever he did last year wasn't enough to win him the Zambian Sportsman of the Year. His coach was the sports coach of the year, but the athlete who's like the athlete whose credit or whatever I'm trying to say, who can be credited for the coach's performance, because the athlete has been winning, hence the coach was recognized, and it's been a big factor in the performance of the team. Whichever athletics team in Zambia wasn't good enough to win the Sportsman of the Year. And if you ask me, this can be attributed to what happened post the Olympic Games. Zambians will be watching this know what happens. The news was in all over social media, and the athlete was condemned because he wanted to speak on behalf of the other athletes. Who he thought, like the kind of an athlete is, he can use his platform or his voice to speak on issues affecting the athletes, but he received a lot of backlash. That's a story for another day. But I mean, credit goes to Paul Manza, who was named the Zambian Sportsman of the Year. He had a good show. He won for the first time ever strongman. I think for the second time in a row, strongman, the annual classic strongman competition, where he was the world champion, 40 plus age, 105 kg category, and I mean, he had a good run. But comparing his competition, being objective and comparing that competition to the Olympic Games, and the results of the Olympic Games not beating that competition, these are some of the issues that need to be addressed, objectively looked at, without favoritism. Like, just look at the things the way they are, compare them, and address them as they are. I mean, this is just me sharing my sentiments towards that and what it means. Like, there's a lot to say, there's a lot that can be said, but from what I've just said, this is the Mona Lisa I've painted, and you can judge for yourselves how this looks. For me, last thing I can say on today's episode is that there's a lot that's going on in Zambian sport which need scrutiny from the public, because there are things that are being let just happen like that, and no one is asking questions. with that, I end today's episode of the weekly sports roundup. I'm very thankful for the feedback I'm receiving so far, and it's been encouraging me every time to set up my camera and talk to this small camera that will then package whatever I'm talking about to the larger audiences that's outside there. I mean, it has been great. It's a lot of work trying to choose what to speak about, but with time, we're planning on making things more interesting, and hopefully, we'll start having guests on the show in person and virtually. And yeah, I just hope that you look forward to every episode, like I'm looking forward to every episode. And if there's any feedback you can give me, please comment and let me know, and how we can improve this show. I mean, it's the weekly sports roundup where we bring in sports news with a different twist, and I'm sure every time you should be looking forward to watching this show as it gets bigger. Thank you for the support, and I hope to see you in the next video. Ciao.